that banned Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from ever meeting Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis was not signed in a stateroom. It was not witnessed by courtiers. It was not sealed with ceremony. It was signed at 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday night in the small study at Adelaide Cottage by a man who had spent the previous 3 hours sitting on the floor of his children's bedroom, watching them sleep, trying to decide whether the thing he was about to do was protection or cruelty. And when he finally stood and walked to the study and picked up the pen, his hand was steady. Because the decision had been made long before the pen touched the paper. It had been made the moment his eldest son looked up at him and asked a question that no 7-year-old should have needed to ask. The question was, "Papa, is it true that our family is broken?" And William had looked at his son, and he had not answered, because the answer was yes. And because he could not let his son carry the yes. Not yet. Not while he still had the power to build a world where the answer could be no. The ban is permanent, not temporary, not conditional, not subject to review, permanent. It prohibits Harry and Meghan from attending any private family gathering at which the Cambridge children are present. It prohibits unsupervised contact. It prohibits correspondence addressed to the children. It prohibits the transmission of photographs, recordings, or personal messages. It prohibits, in the language of the instrument, any interaction that would establish or maintain a personal relationship between the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and the children of the Prince of Wales. The instrument is 4 pages. It is signed by William. It is countersigned by his private secretary. And it is sealed with the personal signet of the Prince of Wales. And it is the hardest document William has ever signed. Harder than the protection withdrawal. Harder than the trust restructuring. Harder than the banishment. Because this one does not sever a financial thread or a security detail. This one severs a family. And the family is the children. And the children are the future. And the future is what William is building. And he is building it by removing from his children's lives the one person who could teach them that the building is flawed. Before we reconstruct the family gathering that triggered this ban, the gathering where a child asked a question that changed everything, before we walk through Catherine's conversation with her children, the conversation where she told them they would not see their uncle for a long time, and before we describe the moment the palace staff learned of the ban and wept in the corridors they had polished for decades, make sure to hit subscribe to Crown Watch and turn on the notification bell. Because this story is not about a feud. It is about the oldest, hardest, most terrible calculation a parent can make. The calculation of what truths a child is too young to carry. And it is about a father who decided that his children would not carry the truth about the institution they will inherit. Not yet. Not until they are old enough to bear it. And who banned his brother from their lives to keep the truth from reaching them. And who wept in the study after he signed the paper, because he knew what he had done. And he knew why. And he knew that the why did not make it hurt less. Let's begin with the gathering. Because the gathering is where the question was asked, and the question is where the ban began.
The occasion was a private family memorial. Not a public event. Not a state ceremony. A small, intimate gathering at Windsor Castle, held to mark the anniversary of Prince Philip's death. The family had gathered in the private chapel. Charles, Camilla, William, Catherine, the 3 children, Anne, Edward, and Harry, who had travelled from California for the occasion, and Meghan, who had come with him. It was the first time Harry and Meghan had been in the same room as the Cambridge children in over 2 years. The atmosphere was careful, controlled. The adults spoke in low voices. The children were quiet. And the service proceeded with the dignity that such occasions demand. The moment that changed everything happened after the service. The family had moved to the private drawing room for tea. The adults were seated. The children were at a small table near the window with a plate of biscuits and a pot of juice. Harry was standing near the fireplace, speaking quietly with Charles. Meghan was seated on a sofa, speaking with Anne. And the children were playing, in the quiet way children play when they sense the adults are sad. Then George, who is 11, looked up from the table. He looked at Harry. He looked at Meghan. He looked at his father. And he asked in the clear, unself-conscious voice of a child who has not yet learned that some questions are not asked. "Uncle Harry, why don't you live here anymore?" The room went quiet.
Not dramatically, not visibly, but the air changed. Harry turned from the fireplace. He looked at George. He looked at William. He looked at Catherine. And he answered. He answered honestly. He said, "Because I chose a different life, George. I chose to live somewhere else, with my family, and that's okay. Sometimes people choose different paths." George thought about this. Then he asked the second question. The one that broke the room. "But Papa said our family is broken. Is that why you left? Because we're broken?" The silence that followed was absolute. William
Set down his cup.
Catherine closed her eyes. Harry looked at his nephew, and his face did something that everyone in the room saw and no one in the room will ever forget. It crumbled, not into anger, into grief. Into the grief of a man who had left an institution, built a life, fought a war, and lost a family, and who was now standing in a drawing room at Windsor Castle, being asked by an 11-year-old boy if the family was broken. And Harry, because he is Harry, because he has never been able to lie to a child, said, "Your family is not broken, George. Your family is complicated, and complicated is not the same as broken. And I love you, and I love your sisters and your brother, and I will always love you, no matter where I live." George nodded. He did not fully understand, but he accepted the answer. He went back to his biscuits. The room exhaled. The adults resumed their conversations. The tea continued, and the moment passed. But it did not pass for William. William had heard the question. He had heard the answer. He had heard his son say, "Papa said our family is broken," and he understood in that moment that the narrative had reached his children. Not through malice, not through Harry's intent, but through proximity. Through the simple, unavoidable fact that his children lived in the institution, and the institution was complicated, and complication, in the ears of a child, sounds like brokenness. And Harry, by being present, by answering honestly, by saying complicated is not the same as broken, had given the child a framework that William had been trying for years to keep his children from receiving, the framework that says the family is not what it should be. And William could not let his children have that framework, not yet. Not while they were young, not while they still believed that the world their father was building was whole. The drive back to Adelaide Cottage was silent. Catherine drove. William sat in the passenger seat. The children were in the back, asleep. William stared out the window at the Windsor parkland passing in the dark, and he thought about the question, about the answer, about the framework, and he thought about what would happen if the framework took root. If George grew up believing the family was broken, if Charlotte grew up believing the institution was cruel, if Louis grew up believing that the crown was a weight that destroyed the people who carried it, and he thought about what would happen if they carried that belief into their adulthood, into their duties, into their reign. And he understood, with the clarity of a man who has spent his life inside the institution, that a sovereign who believes the institution is broken cannot lead it, cannot defend it, cannot sustain it, because you cannot lead what you do not believe in, and his children must lead it, and they must believe in it, and they cannot believe in it if they are taught at 11 that it is broken. Catherine speak during the drive. She knew what William was thinking. She knew because she had been thinking it too. She had watched George ask the question. She had watched Harry answer. She had watched the framework land. And she had understood, as William had understood, that the contact had to end. Not because Harry was harmful, not because Meghan was dangerous, but because the children were young, and the truth was heavy. And the truth, delivered before the children were strong enough to carry it, would bend them. And they could not be bent. They had to be straight. They had to be whole. They had to believe, for as long as possible, that the family was not broken, that the institution was not cruel, that the crown was not a weight that destroyed, because they would carry the crown. And they could not carry it if they believed it would destroy them. The decision was made that night, not in the study, not over a document in the children's bedroom. William and Catherine went in after the children were asleep, and they sat on the floor in the dark. And they talked. Not about the ban, not yet. About the children, about George's question, about Charlotte's silence, about Louis's laughter, which had not changed because Louis was too young to understand. And they talked about what they wanted for their children, what they believed, what they fear. And Catherine said, they need to believe it is whole, for as long as possible, because one day they will learn it is not, and when they learn it, they will need to have spent their childhood believing it was whole, because that belief is the foundation they will stand on when the truth comes, and without the foundation, the truth will break them. William said, then we protect the foundation, even if it costs us everything, even if it costs us him. Catherine said, even if it costs us him. The ban was drafted the following day, not by lawyers, not by the Privy Council, by William himself, in his own hand, on a legal pad, in the study at Adelaide Cottage. He wrote it in plain language, not institutional language, not constitutional language, the language of a father. I, William, Prince of Wales, in my capacity as father and guardian of Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, hereby prohibit any contact, meeting, correspondence, or interaction between the said children and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, effective immediately and without time limit. This prohibition is made in the interests of the children's welfare and emotional stability. It is not a judgment on the Duke and Duchess. It is a protection of the children. It will remain in force until I determine otherwise.
He signed it, he sealed it, and he sent it by hand to Harry's legal representative in London. Harry received the ban on Tuesday. He was in Montecito. His legal representative read it over the phone. Harry listened. He did not interrupt. When the reading was finished, he said, the children? The solicitor said, the ban covers all contact, all interaction, all correspondence. It is permanent. It is without review. Harry was quiet for a long time. Then he said, did he say why? The solicitor said, the instrument states that the prohibition is made in the interests of the children's welfare and emotional stability. It states that it is not a judgment on you or the Duchess. Harry said, but it is a judgment. It says my presence is harmful to them. It says my love is a risk. It says that I, their uncle, am not safe for them. The solicitor did not answer, because the answer was in the instrument, and the answer was yes. Meghan was in the garden when Harry told her. She listened. She did not speak immediately. She looked at the house where Archie and Lilibet were playing. She looked at the gate. She looked at the sky. And then she said, he is protecting them from us. Harry said, he is protecting them from the truth. Meghan said, is that we love them. He would never harm them. The truth is that George asked the question and you answered it honestly, and now we are banned for the honesty. I know, Meghan said. And he knows that. He knows we would never harm them. And he is banning us anyway, because the truth is not what he wants them to have. He wants them to have the story that the family is whole, and we are the crack in the story, and he is sealing the crack. Harry said, yes. Meghan said, then we are sealed, and there is nothing we can do about it. Harry said, no, there is nothing we can do about it. Catherine's conversation with the children took place on Wednesday evening. She chose the time carefully, after dinner, after homework, after the bath, when the children were calm, when the house was quiet, when the day was settling into the softness of bedtime. She went to George's room first. George was 11. He was the one who had asked the question. He was the one who had received the framework, and he was the one who needed the explanation most. Catherine sat on the edge of his bed. She did not bring a document. She did not bring a script. She brought only herself. And she said, George, I need to talk to you about something. And I need you to listen. And I need you to know that what I am going to say is not because anyone is bad. It is because you are young. And some things are too heavy for young people to carry. And we are going to carry them for you until you are strong enough to carry them yourself. George looked at her. He was quiet. He was a boy who listened before he spoke. Catherine continued, you are not going to see Uncle Harry and Aunt Meghan for a while, not for a little while, for a long while. And that is not because they did something wrong, and that is not because you did something wrong. It is because the grown-ups have decided that right now the family needs to be quiet, and quiet means no visiting, no letters, no calls, and I know that is hard, and I know you will miss them, and I want you to know that it is okay to miss them. Missing them does not mean you are doing something wrong. And it does not mean they are doing something wrong. It just means the family is in a quiet time, and quiet times end. And when this one ends, you will see them again. And they will love you, and you will love them, and the quiet will be over.
George was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Is it because I asked the question?" Catherine's heart broke. She did not let it show. She said, "No, George, it is not because you asked the question. You were allowed to ask the question. You will always be allowed to ask questions. It is because the answer to the question is heavy, and we want you to have time to grow before you carry the answer. And when you are older, we will talk about it, and we will tell you everything, and you will understand, and you will not be angry, and you will not be sad. You will just understand. And understanding is better than carrying. And we want you to understand when you are ready, not before." Nodded. He did not fully understand, but he trusted her, because she was his mother. And mothers tell the truth, even when the truth is quiet. Catherine went to Charlotte's room next. Charlotte was 9. She was quieter than George, more watchful. She had not asked the question at the gathering, but she had heard it. She had heard the silence that followed, she had heard the answer, and she had carried the silence home. Catherine sat on her bed. Charlotte was already in her pyjamas, her hair in a braid, a book open on her lap. Catherine said, "Charlotte, I need to tell you something, and I need you to know it is not a punishment, it is a pause, a quiet time. And quiet times are not forever, they are just for now." Charlotte looked at her. She closed the book. She said, "It's about Uncle Harry." Catherine said, "Yes." Charlotte said, "We're not going to see him." Catherine said, "Not for a while, not for a long while." Then she said, "Will he know we love him?" Catherine said, "He knows. He has always known, and he will always know. The quiet does not change the love. The love is underneath the quiet, and the love does not go away." Charlotte nodded. She opened her book again, and Catherine left the room. And in the corridor, she pressed her hand against the wall, and she breathed, and she did not cry, because she had 2 more rooms to go to, and she could not cry yet, not until the children were all asleep. Louis was 5. He was already in bed. He was already asleep. Catherine stood in his doorway and looked at him. He was small. He was warm. He was breathing. And he did not know. He did not know about the question. He did not know about the framework. He did not know about the ban. He was 5, and the world was still simple, and the family was still whole, and the quiet had not reached him yet. Catherine stood in the doorway for a long time, and then she closed it, and she went to the study, and she sat down, and she cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, but she cried, because she had told her children that their family was in a quiet time, and she had told them the quiet would end. And she did not know if that was true, and she did not know if the quiet would end. And she did not know if the love underneath the quiet would survive the quiet. And she cried because she did not know, and because she had to tell them it would be okay. And because telling them it would be okay was the hardest thing she had ever done. The palace staff learned of the ban on Thursday, not through a memo, not through a briefing, through the absence. The absence of the scheduled family gathering that had been on the calendar for the following month. The absence of the travel arrangements that had been made for Harry and Meghan's next visit. The absence of the names on the guest list. The senior housekeeper, a woman named Margaret, who has served the royal household for 31 years, noticed the absence first. She went to the private secretary's office. She asked. The private secretary told her. And Margaret, who had watched George take his first steps in the corridor outside the nursery, who had polished the banister Charlotte held when she learned to walk down the stairs, who had wiped Louis's face after his first trooping the colour, went back to the housekeeper's office and sat down and wept. Not quietly, not with dignity. She wept the way a person weeps when something they love has been broken and they cannot fix it. And the other staff, who saw her weeping, understood. And they wept too, because they understood, and because they could not fix it, and because the children would grow up without knowing what they had lost. And the loss would be invisible. And invisible losses are the hardest to mourn. Charles was informed by William on Friday. William went to Windsor. He went to the King's study. He brought the ban. He placed it on the desk. He said, "I have banned Harry and Meghan from the children, permanently. I want you to hear it from me. I want you to understand why. And I want you to know that I did it with grief. And I want you to know that I would undo it if I could. And I want you to know that I cannot." Charles read the ban. He read it slowly. He read the words, "This prohibition is made in the interests of the children's welfare and emotional stability. It is not a judgment on the Duke and Duchess." He read them twice. Then he looked at his son, and he said, "You are protecting them from the truth." William said, "I am protecting them from the weight of the truth until they are strong enough to carry it." Charles said, "And if they are never strong enough?" William said, "Then I will carry it for them, for as long as I can. And when I cannot, I will tell them, and they will understand, and they will forgive me, and they will carry it, and the family will be what it is, but they will not carry it before they are ready. I will not let them." Then he said, "Your mother would have understood." William said, "I know." Charles said, "She would have done the same thing. She would have protected you from the truth until you were ready, and she did. And when you were ready, she told you, and you carried it, and you survived it." William said, "Yes." Charles said, "Then you are doing what she did, and I am proud of you for it, and I am sorry that it is necessary, and I will grieve. For the grandchildren I will not see with my other grandchildren, for the family that will not be whole, for the quiet that will last longer than it should. And I will grieve in private, because the grief is mine to carry, and I will carry it." And he placed the ban in the drawer of his desk, beside the other documents he keeps there, the ones that matter, the ones that are not filed but held. And he did not speak of it again. Harry's response to the ban evolved over the following weeks.
The initial shock gave way to grief.
The grief gave way to anger. The anger gave way to something quieter, something more final. He understood, with the clarity of a man who has been outcasted before, that the ban was not a negotiation. It was not a leverage. It was not a tactic. It was a decision made by a father for his children, and the decision was final. And Harry could not change it, and he could not appeal it, and he could not soften it. He could only accept it or reject it, and rejection would mean war, and war would mean the children would grow up knowing the family was broken. And that was the one thing William was trying to prevent. So Harry accepted, not with grace, not with peace, but with the weary, exhausted acceptance of a man who has lost everything and has learned that loss is not a single event. It is a series, and each loss is smaller than the last. And the last loss is the one that does not hurt, because there is nothing left to lose. Meghan's response was different. She did not accept, not immediately. She fought, not publicly, not through the press, privately, through Catherine. She wrote to Catherine, not a statement, not an accusation, a letter, a personal letter, in her own hand, sent by private courier. The letter was 3 pages. It did not ask for the ban to be lifted. It asked for one thing, one exception. It asked that when the children were old enough, when George was 16, when Charlotte was 14, when Louis was 12, they be given the choice. The choice to meet their uncle and aunt, the choice to know them, the choice to decide for themselves whether the family was broken or whole. And the letter said, "Do not make the decision for them forever. Make it for now, and when they are old enough, let them choose, because they are not yours to keep from us forever. They are their own, and their own will want to know. And when they want to know, let them." Catherine read the letter. She read it 3 times. She sat with it for 2 days. And then she wrote back, not a refusal, not an acceptance, a promise. She wrote, "I cannot promise you a date. I cannot promise you a meeting. I cannot promise you that the quiet will end. But I can promise you this. When the children are old enough to choose, they will be told the truth, and they will be given the choice, and the choice will be theirs. Not mine, not William's, theirs. And if they choose to know you, they will know you. And if they choose not to, that will be their right. But they will choose, and the choice will be free. And that is all I can promise. And I make it to you, in writing, in my hand, as a mother, and as a woman who understands that the quiet is not forever, even when it feels like it is." Harry received Catherine's letter on a Tuesday. He read it in his study. He read it twice. He placed it in the drawer of his desk, beside the other letters he keeps there, the ones that matter, the ones that are not filed but held. And he did not reply, because there was nothing to reply to. The promise was made, the choice would come, and the waiting was the only thing left, and waiting is what Harry has learned to do. Wait for the quiet to end, wait for the children to grow, wait for the choice to be made, and in the waiting, he builds his life, his family, his home, and he loves his own children, Archie and Lilibet, who do not know the quiet, who do not know the BANS, who know only that their father is sometimes sad, and that the sadness has a shape, and that the shape is a family they have never met. And they ask about it. And Harry tells them, one day you will meet them, and when you do, you will love them, and they will love you, and the quiet will be over. And they believe him, because children believe their fathers, even when the fathers are not sure. The palace staff's grief has settled into a quiet, permanent sadness. The staff do not speak of the ban. They do not discuss it. They do not question it, but they feel it in the empty room where the family gathering was to be held, in the guest list that no longer has the names, in the nursery where the children sleep, unaware of what they have lost. Margaret, the senior housekeeper, has begun a practice that no one else knows about. Every Sunday evening she goes to the private chapel at Windsor. She lights a candle. She does not pray. She simply sits, and she thinks of the children, of George's question, of Charlotte's silence, of Lewis's laughter, and she thinks of the family that will not be whole, and she sits with the candle, and the candle burns, and the quiet holds, and the grief is hers to carry, and she carries it. Because someone must, because the children will not know what they lost, and the loss must be mourned by someone. And Margaret mourns it, in the chapel, in the quiet, in the light of a candle that no one else sees. William's grief is different. It is not quiet. It is not permanent. It is recurring. It comes in moments. When George asks a question about the family, when Charlotte draws a picture and leaves a space empty, when Louis says, Uncle Harry, without knowing why he says it. And in those moments, William feels the weight of the ban, not as a decision, as a cost, the cost of the protection, the cost of the foundation, the cost of the belief he is building for his children. And he carries the cost, because the cost is his, and because the cost is the price of the future, and the future is what he is building, and he is building it with the materials he has, and the materials include the absence of his brother, the absence of his brother's wife, the absence of the cousins his children will not know, and the absence is part of the building, and the building stands, and the building is whole, and the wholeness is the lie he tells his children, and the lie is the love he gives them, and the love is the foundation, and the foundation is the future, and the future is his to build, and he builds it.
With the absence, with the grief, with the quiet, and he does not stop. Because stopping would mean the children would see the crack, and they must not see the crack. Not yet. Not while they are young. Not while the foundation is still being laid. Catherine's grief is the most complex. She grieves for the children. She grieves for Harry and Meghan. She grieves for the family that will not be whole. And she grieves for the promise she made. The promise that the children would choose, the promise that the quiet would end, the promise that the love underneath the quiet would survive, and she does not know if the promise will hold, she does not know if the children will choose, she does not know if the love will survive, and the not knowing is the grief, and she carries it, because she made the promise, and the promise is hers to keep. And keeping it means waiting, and waiting means hoping, and hoping means believing that the quiet is not forever, and believing means carrying the grief of the not knowing. And she carries it in the study, in the garden, in the quiet hours when the children are asleep and the house is still and the future is a question she cannot answer. And she carries it because she is the one who made the promise. And the promise is the only thing that keeps the door from closing completely. And the door must not close completely. Because behind the door are two children in California who do not know the quiet. And they will grow up. And they will ask. And when they ask, the door must be there, and Catherine will keep it there, because she is the one who holds the key, and the key is the promise, and the promise is the future, and the future is hers to protect. What does this story tell us about the monarchy? It tells us that the institution's hardest decisions are not about power, they are about children, about what truths a child is too young to carry, about what stories a child needs to believe in order to grow up strong enough to carry the truth. About what protections a parent must build, even when the protection requires the absence of love. And it tells us that the monarchy is not just an institution, it is a family, and the family is broken. And the brokenness is not a scandal, it is a cost, the cost of the crown, the cost of the duty, the cost of the future,
And the cost is paid by the children who will not see their uncle, by the children who will not know their cousins, by the children who will grow up in a quiet that they did not choose and cannot end. And the cost is carried by the parents who made the decision, who signed the paper, who told the children the quiet would end, and who do not know if it will. It tells us that the hardest thing a mother can do is not to protect. It is to lie, to tell her children that the family is whole when it is not, to tell them the quiet will end when she does not know, to tell them the love will survive when she cannot promise, and to make the lie with love, because the lie is not cruelty.
The lie is protection. The lie is the foundation. And the foundation is what the children will stand on when the truth comes. And without the foundation, the truth will break them. And they cannot be broken. They must be whole. They must be strong. They must believe. And the belief is the lie. And the lie is the love. And the love is the future. And the future is the children. And the children are the crown. And the crown is the lie. And the lie is the love. And the love is the cost. And the cost is the grief. And the grief is the quiet. And the quiet is the ban. And the ban is the protection. And the protection is the future. And the future is the children. And the children are the reason. And the reason is the love. And the love is the lie. And the lie is the foundation. And the foundation is the crown. And the crown is the children. And the children are the future. And the future is the lie. It tells us that the palace in tears is not a metaphor. The palace wept, the staff wept, the housekeepers wept, the footmen wept, the gardeners wept, the nannies wept, because they understood. They understood what the ban meant. They understood what the children would lose. They understood what the family would become. And they wept because they could not change it, because they could not fix it, because they could not open the door that had been closed, and the weeping was the only thing they could do, the only thing they could offer, the only thing they could give to the children who would not know what they lost. And the weeping was not weakness, it was love. It was the love of the people who polish the banisters and wipe the faces and light the candles, the love that is invisible, the love that is not recorded, the love that is carried in the quiet, and the quiet is the palace, and the palace is the tears, and the tears are the love, and the love is the grief, and the grief is the cost, and the cost is the children, and the children are the future, and the future is the tears, and the tears are the love. What do you think? Was William right to ban Harry and Meghan from the children's lives, or should the children have been allowed to maintain the relationship regardless of the institutional narrative? Is Catherine's promise that the children will choose when they are old enough, or does it defer a decision that should be made now? Should the palace staff's grief be acknowledged, or does the institution require that the grief remain invisible? And should Harry and Meghan accept the ban, or should they fight it publicly for the sake of the children who will grow up not knowing them? Tell us in the comments below. We read every one, and this story, more than any we have covered, deserves the community's judgment. If you want to stay ahead of the royal stories the mainstream media will not touch, make sure you are subscribed to Crown Watch. Turn on the notification bell. Share this with someone who understands that the hardest decisions are not made in state rooms. They are made on the floor of a child's bedroom, in the dark, by a parent watching a child sleep and trying to decide whether the thing they are about to do is protection or cruelty. Because in the House of Windsor, the crown is not built in ceremonies, it is built in quiet rooms, in whispered conversations, in bans signed at midnight, in promises made in letters, in candles lit by housekeepers who will never be thanked. And the building stands, and the building is whole, and the wholeness is the lie, and the lie is the love, and the love is the future, and the future is the children, and the children are the reason, and the reason is the quiet is the ban, and the ban is the protection, and the protection is the crown, and the crown is the children, and the children are the future, and the future is the lie, and the lie is the love, and the love is the cost, and the cost is the tears, and the tears are the palace, and the palace is the quiet, and the quiet is the love. Stay curious, stay informed, stay questioning, and remember, every ban has a reason, and every reason has a child at the center of it, and every child has a question they are too young to ask, and every question has an answer that is too heavy to give.
Until next time, keep your eyes on the empty chairs at the family table and your hearts open to the ones who light the candles. Because the candle is the grief, and the grief is the love, and the love is the quiet, and the quiet is the ban, and the ban is the protection, and the protection is the future, and the future is the children, and the children are the crown, and the crown is the lie, and the lie is the vum, and the love is the foundation, and the foundation is the family, and the family is broken, and the brokenness is the cost, and the cost is the tears, and the tears are the palace, and the palace is in tears, and the tears are the love, and the love is the children, and the children are the future, and the future is the quiet, and the quiet is the love, and the love is the crown, and the crown is the children, and the children are the reason, and the reason is the love. Goodbye.